meeting today. So first apology we have is from Mayor Ash. He's just in a Zoom meeting at the moment being presented regarding the Three Waters Working Group. So he will be joining us shortly. Do we have any other apologies? Okay, so for notifications of urgent business, Chief Executive, something for that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the boat ramp contract, which I have circulated via your guidance on whether the council would like to proceed with it or whether they would like to delay it.
So we just need somebody to move that we accept that urgent business. Then James and Adrian. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll look at that at the end.
The lateness.
Oh, we've got to move Mayor's latest apology as well. So, yep. Okay, just a reminder of any declarations of interest for anybody's got. Any conflicts today, please let us know. I'm looking for somebody to confirm the minutes from the ordinary meeting held on the 9th of February 2022 and also public excluded from that same day.
Yes, I will read.
Well done, thank you, Sue. Is there anywhere? Anyone else read them?
No.
Can Donna hear us now?
Yes, I did. I'm happy to second. I've read them.
All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And we've got nobody today in the public forum. That's all good. So we'll go straight on to the first item, which is the Audit and Risk Committee report from yesterday. Good morning, Joanne. Welcome.
Kia ora. I'm going to start. I'm just going to I invite the people that were at the meeting, Geothermal committee, to jump in if they want to. I'm aware that the council is going to be going over a lot of the stuff that was given to the Audit and Risk Committee yesterday. So I've highlighted some of the areas that we spoke about. And I just have to say the meeting was wonderful, and I watched Bruce have a moment of discovery, which was wonderful to see, and that he understood some of the management risk examples. So in saying that, I'll go to that area first. We had Leslie come in and make a presentation. Now, Leslie works under... Well, Elias was the person that...
she's Elias.
And so she has a very different style of working. And one of the things that she did was break down the information for the committee and then use an example, which was Bruce's moment of thinking this is how we applied So What, became from an academic paper into this is an operational paper. And what that showed me, not only, I mean, I'm using Bruce as an example. A lot of the things that happen when you're putting policy forward is people think, I've got a policy, I don't know what to do with it, unless you're led in the steps. And so when we have a councillor having a moment like that and then really understanding, there will be lots of people that don't really get how we do that. So I wanted to highlight that. But the other thing that in risk assessment, and it's everywhere, it's a huge piece of work amongst all the other pieces of work that we listened to yesterday. One of the things that right at the beginning, when I talked about the pressure on council staff to complete work, and where our committee went to, the audit committee went to, is how do you prioritise that, because the work keeps coming. And I think, Adrian, you talked about the tension between the work being completed and more work being put in there. The other thing that Ash raised is if we've got work coming into council from outside, like his favourite subject, Three Waters, who's paying for it? And that was one of the highlighting things yesterday about that's a question for a lot of the areas that the council was stepping into or having to complete, and they without trying to pick up that cost yourselves. So, Adrian, do you have any comment about that?
No, not really. I think it's, we certainly thrashed it out yesterday, and it's just that ongoing tension between getting things done and paying for it, how we pay for it.
You could put your thing on or else mask off on you.
Yeah.
Too heartbroken.
The next thing I want to talk about is the work that Dennis Bellamy's team has done in relation to the audit, because last audit meeting, he was very upset and rightly so in some places about the organisation that audited them. And of course, we've got lack of staff, and the example yesterday that he used there, they came off as almost a critical, but the same measurement was applied to another council and they were moderate. And anyway, Dennis's team has worked really hard to improve or to actually meet some of the conditions that were set by the audit team, but also felt that it was almost an unfair judgment around that. And so our discussion centered around one, Dennis probably buying somebody some morning tea before we get started, so we're on a lot friendlier ground. But the other thing is, if other councils are being judged differently, how do we approach that? Because I would think, and they have confirmed, that other councils are in the same position as this council, and it created almost created a groundswell of work that possibly could have not been so stressful for the staff. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that because no doubt Dennis is on your agenda, probably. I don't know your agenda, but I just wanted to acknowledge that Dennis's team, Daniel, and all of them that worked really hard to adhere to the audit team's request. So congratulations to them. The next thing we talked about risk management, but I also asked questions about security. And in light of what was happening in Wellington, and it's the triennial, the elections coming up, is the council ready for that? And of course, we can't have security at every place where they're voting. And I see on television last night, on one of the programs is watching that, and I think even it was said yesterday here, there are only going to be certain places where polling booths are. I would hate, my concern there is just for our staff, is just for the volunteers that will be helping around that, and the overall security. Now that people like watching Wellington is a really good example of people being either verbally attacked or being spat at for something that some of the protesters may have decided that this is the best way that they want to fight back. So it brings into question how safe are your staff everywhere in terms of the security around them when you have very concerned or people who might, because they don't look like you can't say there's the person. They look just like anything they come up, and it's already started. I'm in an NGO, and we've already been questioned, and the people refuse to wear masks. They refuse to do something, and it's a person that's on her own. And I think for me, that was a real issue about how you look after that. Our staff, our people, who are only abiding by the policy set down by the council. And Steve talked about cybersecurity. Now, I turn the computer on and turn it off if something goes wrong. So he at length talked about the cloud, talked about how council being looked after, you know, the things that you avoid, how to avoid what happened in Waikato. And I asked a question about, because we have so many people working at home and devices, and I know that you have council devices, so that whole area is, there's paper and recommendations that were put out. I think that people have to get really familiar with. And Steve will, I'm not sure if he's on your agenda at all, but I think there's almost, I hesitate to say, a training program that people need to go through to understand, if they don't, what's going to the cloud, how do you use this, what's the implication of this, because they do. And when I first came to the audit committee, my very first meeting, Steve said, we don't know if there's a problem unless somebody does something. And so what they're doing is trying to cover everything, but you know, like, you don't know. So I think that I don't know what your teams will look at in terms of each of your teams understanding the information, and maybe having a training program so that they're all up to date. But that's one side. Council stuff probably is easier than the committees that you have, and the implications of using their own computers, accessing some of the information that they need to, you know, safely. So that was a concern, and I have to admit, I followed him 75% through the discussion, and other parts I thought, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm hearing certain things I thought I don't understand how that works, but it's probably not for me to really understand like it is for the people that are using the systems to understand. A little bit of discussion about the audit that was Audit New Zealand. We've lost Lauren, so only Katarana is the only auditor that the council has. We signed a paper for the audit report to be shifted to December. The staff only got it in January, the results of it, and then they had to look through the results. I, as the chair of the audit committee, was asked to fill out a survey of the audit, about the audit, and I didn't see the audit. So I rang Niall, who knows everything, and I said to Niall, what's happening with this and what does this mean? And he said, you can answer some questions. But I said, I felt like I was lying because I hadn't actually seen the report yet. And he said, then in the comment box put that, you know, we have secured the agreement for the report to be laid. So I just wanted to let you know that I managed to answer it. So this is what I'm looking for. I changed the question around so that I could answer it, but it wouldn't let you go on until you knew certain things. So I've answered a survey that I'm happy with. However, because the audit report wasn't ready, my answers in that reflected that discussion. So, our team. Bruce, Adrian, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, probably the only thing to add was that with Lauren moving on, and I asked about, with the borders opening up, whether there were going to be some more auditors come into the country. So they are working in that space. Obviously, there is some movement there. So hopefully things are more timely. You know, worst case scenario, things are going to be very delayed. You know, hopefully we can still expect them to be delayed, but by how much if they do manage to get some extra staff into the system. We're just caught up in this whirlpool at the moment of immigration. So yeah, I think you're about right. Just around the audit, it's just timing. A lot of it's we just got to roll with it. The staff did a really good job, obviously, with working through it. They've got a plan. again, it's around that risk register again that Leslie's working on. It applies to all of this that around our operations, so that we do understand our risks and how we're going to mitigate them, and whether they've got effective risk management or not. So yeah, that's about it, I think.
My comment really just, it was very positive.
Oh, Don's going to need that.
Sorry.
Where you go, Bruce, and I'll get to
It was a very positive meeting, I thought, and some really good things coming out of it. The risk management I'm very pleased with. Obviously Daniel and what have you with the IN's report. And I feel comfortable with the cyber security. So all in all, I think pretty good.
Donna.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, it was actually a really good meeting yesterday and covered off a lot of topics. So it was, but hard being on Zoom though when my microphone didn't work half the time. But hey, just a question like I was thinking about after the meeting, and this is one that Tamara could probably answer, to do with the elections coming up. If for some forsaken reason, and if this horrible COVID business is still around and quite still full on. I'm not sure if they've actually passed legislation that the elections can be delayed.
Yeah.
Up to 6 months, I think.
We're told so, yes.
Yeah, so if we're still in this awful predicament, that's one thing that one tool government could use to keep staff safe, etc. Okay, thanks.
So Joe and I had a couple of questions. One was, so when do the auditors think they'll do this year's? Are we going to be pushed back to December again, or will they be?
They are just really pushed. They don't have that answer. They're where ours was delayed, they're delayed all the way around, and it depends on whether or not they can get auditors in. They're looking at they're reassigning some of their program, but they can't give that answer. Just can't.
I think staff can answer that to a degree too, because we've asked to be prioritised, and so they will be coming through, hoping to come through early. But yeah, I wouldn't be holding our breath, Neil.
So we'll just operate as if they are going to.
Yeah.
Because we just got to do what we've got to do. They've undertaken to try and prioritise us. The hope is that we get it adopted by this council, of course. That would be preferable. But there's a risk it may be delayed till after the election, and then we can't straight to adopt it or be receivable. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? All right, so we're looking for somebody to move the information we received.
Neil, I'll move, and thank you, Joanne. That's really very interesting for somebody who wasn't at the meeting. So thank you very much. It was excellent.
And Adrian, second. All those in favour?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joanne, for your time coming in again. Much appreciated. Especially helping Bruce out like that. That's really.
Above and beyond.
Yeah. You've shared that, haven't you? Did you share it to all councillors, Sandra? That risk register.
No, just a committee members, but I'm happy to share it to everyone.
Yeah, it was quite good because there was a flow chart. Leslie put it on the whiteboard, and it really did show the processes. It was quite practical. I think that was quite good to see that we're working in that space.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
See ya.
Right, so Manoa, are you the man for the 6 months report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Marnie presented this to the committee yesterday, but she's unable to do that today. I'm not sure if any of the team are on the Zoom. I can't tell, but anyway, if there are any questions that I can't answer, I'll get back to the team and come back with those answers for you. So The chief executive operates an environment of no surprises for you as a council, and the 6-month report is one of the key parts of that in terms of our business. Not only our financial side, but also our performance measures. And so there's a lot of information which is presented and prepared for the 6-month report, but it is to try and ensure that when you get to the end of the financial year and we do produce the annual report for you, that it's largely without any surprises. Of course, we have the monthly financial exception report, and that's also on a no surprise basis. I think one of the critical things that comes out of the 6-month report from a financial perspective, and Sandra will talk about the performance measures, but from a financial perspective is actually the projection to the end of the financial year. That it forms the basis for us to look at how we're going and projecting where we might be. Critically, to enable you as a council, if you're not happy about how things are going, to decide whether we need to change anything. So whilst there is a lot of information, I'm going to try and condense and summarise things to a level that focuses on those key things about our projection and as I say, commentary on some of the things that are happening. From an operational, if I can split it up into operations and capital. From an operational perspective, at the 31st of December, we had a $2.4 million surplus, which is a point in time, which is not expected to continue through to the end of the financial year. By the end of the financial year, we're forecasting a 1.74 million surplus. And when you mention numbers like that, it's very easy to say, what are we doing with all of this cash? I mean, why are we having a surplus of that order? We actually budgeted a surplus for this financial year of $2.6 million. And a big chunk of that, in fact, all of that surplus relates to non-related activities. We were budgeting $1.8 million worth of development contributions, and all of that can only be used for growth. We budget for vested assets, so assets that are vested in council. We recognise the value of those assets in our financial statements, and that is a non-rated activity. And finally, we put aside funding that we have in respect of the mines of wastewater, whereby we have an agreement with an industry that they are paying us back for capital, and they're paying it back faster than we're actually having to pay back, and so we reserve that. So of the 2.6 million forecasts of budgeted surplus, all of that is non-rated or non-rate related, and we're actually projecting a $1.7 million surplus at the end of the financial year. So that is less than what we were actually budgeting. What are the reasons for that? And some of these reasons, I want to mention the key, if you like, areas that are rates funded. Okay? And I hope that none of these areas are a surprise to you. Number one, water activity. Our metered water revenue is lower than we were budgeted. We knew there was a risk around that. We did increase our water charges. We also knew there was a risk that we wouldn't get our target. You will note that for next financial year, we've also budgeted an increase in our water meter charges, but there's a risk in any year about our water revenue. There's been a consistent pattern in the last few years that we haven't hit our target. And the other side of the water equation is that our operating costs are again looking to be over budget for this financial year. Again, this is like the third year in a row that our operating costs are higher than what we had budgeted. In next year's annual plan, our draft annual plan, we've made a provision to increase our costs to try and ensure that we do get it right. I think the key issue there for us is that our drinking water standards are set at a level that we have to achieve. And what we're finding is in trying to achieve those levels, it is costing us more than we had expected. But also I think the market conditions are such that we're seeing it's costing us more for contractors in the operating space and for advisors. So water continues to be an area of concern in terms of the impact on our operations. I just want to say that in our draft annual plan, we've tried to make allowance for that. So really nothing to do this financial year, through to 30th of June, in my view. The other area that has consistently been a bit of an issue for us since we changed the way that we deal with our rubbish bags, and we now, they're all purchased rather than distributed as part of the rates. And so our revenue for rubbish bags is likely to be, is projected to be lower. Not as much, we're getting better every year, to be fair. And I think the chair has noted that the number of black bags that are sitting around the streets has reduced significantly. So we are getting there. We're actually chipping away at that, which is good. As we all know, there are some other changes coming through in that refuse activity. And now, and the third area of expenditure, of over expenditure, if you like, and under revenue, is our pools and spas, where we're seeing two combined effects, really. The impact of COVID and the lockdowns on our revenue, and the impact on our swim zone Matamata of closure of our indoor pool for a period of time, and this impact on our spas revenue. So our spas typically every year they have exceeded their budget every year for the last 10. This year, we won't exceed our budget because of, well, we don't think we will because of the lockdown. We might still do that. But definitely we've been affected because of the lockdowns in the pools and spas, and of course that one-off big expense that we had to remove the indoor pool roof at Swim Zone Matamata. And finally, again, this is, I know, it has come up in the last few years. We're expecting that our staff costs will be under budget again, so by the end of the financial year, and that's largely because of our inability to, even though we want to fill roles, we haven't been able to, or we don't expect to be able to fill all vacant roles that we have. And some of that is trickling through into our operations area, where we see that we've got some, for example, areas of under expenditure. So the other four big ones, and are likely to, impact through to the end of the financial year. There are lots of other under and overs in the accounts, and I hope you've been able to see those in the volume of information that we've actually provided with you. I've just tried to pick out the highlights, all lowlights. The other thing I want to comment on in the committee, the Audit and Risk Committee raised this yesterday, is our capital spend, where we start the year with a $20 million carried forward in capital, and we're going to finish the year with $20 million capital. We just seem to be holding our own. That's what the numbers tell us. That our capacity to do our capital program, we are still stretched, and that's a combination of really our ability to get things to market and the market itself. So you have seen examples recently of where we've gone out to market. In fact, the procurement report yesterday indicated where we've gone out to market, and we have not had some tenders at all. So the market conditions make it tough. But I don't want to. The comment was made yesterday by committee members that this has been a consistent theme over a number of years, and to be fair, it has. This is not new. I think the market conditions are tougher at the moment in terms of our get contractors, but we haven't been able to get our capital program and our carry forwards done in any one year. And I honestly don't see a short-term answer to that with our resources. All I could offer to the committee yesterday is that I have a view that our team are focused on getting the capital done in the right areas, particularly in the three water space. We get through our roading program, which is about 12 million a year. We get through that pretty well every year, and we're well geared up to do that. We have a lot on in our waters area. You would have perhaps seen that in the project schedule. I don't see an easy fix for that. As I say, I hope that we are focused our priorities in the right area and at least getting the right jobs done. And I'm sure you would give us feedback if you feel that we're not. I know we're not getting as much done as you would like in some areas. The capital continues to be a challenge for us. Mr. Chair, I think perhaps on that note of the financial highlights, perhaps I'd just invite Sandra just to talk about the performance measures, or Michelle.
Michelle online.
Michelle.
everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, so I'm just here to present the performance side of the 6-month report.
Might just need to speak up a wee bit, please, Michelle.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, getting better.
Yep, so I'm just here to present the performance side of the 6-month report. So at the moment, I can just kind of to advise of any likely issues that may arise to ensure there are no unexpected matters leading up to the full report. So at the moment, at the 6-month mark, 37 performance measures are on track for the year, with 10 not on track, 5 not achieved, 1 measure where information is not available, 10 performance measures which are only measured at the end of the financial year. And so they're measured through the survey undertaken by Versus Research. The results from the survey are used to track our performance against our performance measure targets set in the LTP. The remainder of the performance measures are measured through internal monitoring and generated by a report from our customer request management system. Hopefully you're still able to hear me okay. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions you have on the non-financial performance measures.
We'll go to those first, and she's up at the moment before we go to the noise. Anything on those?
You rated quite well. I read that.
Are you improving, Steve?
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing that frustrates me about those Versus surveys is you'll see a payment note saying unweighted result. What they do is that they look at the population profile and they take that raw data and look at this X% aged 18 to 26 or something like that, and they do get enough survey responses. They weight up those ones they do, so the end of the year result that you see is different from the unweighted results that you're seeing through the year.
So we shouldn't congratulate ourselves.
Well, no, I think you should. I mean, they were the people that were surveyed.
Yeah.
Yes, a couple of interesting, but most of them going in the right direction, which I think is pretty comforting. Yeah. Any of you guys up there got anything to say? Donna.
Yes, hi. Just to clarify, I'm not sure if this question's been asked in the past before, but with the survey itself, is it done by just phoning people using landlines? Because these day and age, there's not many landlines around, so I think the base of the people that are being contacted will be getting smaller and smaller. Or is there another way of these people contacting the locals?
I will have to double check. I'm not sure if Sandra might be able to help me answer that. I think they started doing it over cell phone now.
I can answer if you want, Michelle. Yes, so it is a combination of landline, online, and mobiles. I believe we're still in 21, 22, so this was the first year we were able to do mobiles. So we're slowly shifting more online, which does generally give us a lower result from those specific online respondents versus the phone respondents. But yes, there is definitely mobile in there for the first time this year, so potentially could be causing a slight difference as well, being able to reach that different market and hopefully less weighting needing to be applied this year. I mean, I can't guarantee that, but that's kind of the hope.
Great, thank you.
There's nothing untoward, which is comforting.
All right, so anyone got any questions for Manaia then on the reports?
I just have one, just with regard to the waste contract going forward. Is there going to be effect? Obviously, fuel costs are going to be a significant issue with curbside. Is there, what's this contract like? It's CPI adjusted. Will there be a possible clawback because it's probably fuel costs have gone up exponentially just in very recent times? Just looking at this last 6 months, the headwinds could be more than what we're forecasting. Just raising that flag. I just sort of little light bulb moment when you were talking, and I thought, yeah, that's one of the factors where we have no control.
I do know that in the past, where there have been extraordinary issues occurred, the contractor has come to the councils
Mm.
and advocated for recognition of that. I could check, I don't know.
Yeah.
The chief executive was aware if there's been any approach, but I could check whether any approach has been made yet.
Well, it might come
Yeah, sure,
down the
well,
track.
I
I think that's the thing we need to be aware of is, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, look, there is an escalation clause in
Yeah.
the contract.
Yeah.
And fuel will, it's quite a large contributor to
It is.
that particular contract, yeah.
Just raising it.
So I just had one where I noticed, being fortunate enough to work from home over the last week or three at times, I've noticed that I see we've got into the Allen Street odour problem has got a zero expenditure on it, zero planning, but it's quite significant in town. I don't follow Facebook like you, but I believe it's on there quite regularly at the moment. We're having quite a few issues down at Allen Street with our odour. And I just wonder if anyone knows.
Yeah, that contract's currently being prepared and it's,
Yeah.
all right. It has, a purchasing plan's been prepared. I've signed that off just in the last month and they'll be going to contract very soon, as I understand.
So maybe we should get some comms around that as well.
Yeah,
Because
we can do that.
you can smell it pretty much like I can smell it up the golf course. So it's travelling a fair distance. Yeah. That's my only comment for today. It's good to see that we're actually getting our unders and overs, like for the waste and the rubbish and everything, smaller. It's closer than it was last year. And so that's all we can do. We can't get it right, but we can get it least. So I think that's good. So
I just look forward to the 12-month result, really. Commenting now would be a little premature, I guess, with what's going to happen in the next 6 months to our budgets.
yeah, it's heading in the right direction. That's all good. Yeah. Anything else from you guys up there? No comments on the financials? No. All right, looking for somebody to move and second that. Sue and Kevin. All those in favour?
Right.
Cool. I'll just scroll down to what's next.
The general dawn is going to be a biggie, it's going to affect everywhere over the whole entire organisation. It's a shocker for my budgeted household, which is done the other day.
My bill up was
Okay, Aaron, where are you? Okay, guys, hang on, here we go. So we've got the council strategic direction. My favourite.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, elected members. This is the opportunity to formally adopt your strategic direction that you've been working on over the past few months. You'll note that the amended version was sent through to you and there were a few issues around the version control, which was just around the pictures that were used and making some typo amendments. So the GSOs will make sure that's on the agenda correctly. So I'll take the item as read unless there are any questions.
Yep, Sue.
I just want to comment, I think it reads really well, Erin. I think open and friendly and it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a very nice piece of work.
Thank you.
Adrian?
Yeah, it reads well. I'm a little bit concerned about what we are going to do. Is it aspirational? Is it high level? It's aspirational. And I think that's like when we say we are going to partner with to do housing and stuff like that, we aren't actually there yet, are we?
We're not at the detail.
We're not at the detail. It is very high level so on the whole I think it does read well, but just sort of flagging that, well, we say we are, but are we?
And Erin, there was one concern, I didn't read version 2 because I knew it was mainly pictures, but did we take the Te Aroha Spa development? It sort of read, and James will pick that up, it sort of read that we were going to do this Te Aroha Spa
It was an
development.
EG example of employment, wasn't it?
Pardon?
And the employment of
Yeah,
EG.
yes, that's right.
Spa.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sort of read as if we had done the deal.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I will check that and make that amendment accordingly. I did note that as a potential issue.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little bit too far ahead of it.
Any other comments from you guys?
Very pretty.
Very good. All right. Easy enough. So those who did all the work would like to move to be adopted. Sue. Caitlin, was it? And Caitlin. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Up we've got future proof who's speaking.
We have Lachlan online.
Lachlan,
Yeah, so-
welcome.
So, Mr. Chair, Lockie will speak to this one. Lockie's online.
You're at the beach, Dennis?
Wish.
Oh, I came back this morning. I saw your car there, Dennis. Don't tell me. There you go, Lockie.
Good morning, Mayor Ash and councillors. This agenda item is on appointment to Future Proof Implementation Committee. So the purpose of this agenda item is to allow council to appoint representatives to the Future Proof Implementation Committee. Future Proof is a 30-year growth management strategy between Waikato District, Waipa District, Waikato Regional Council, Hamilton City, Wakakotahi, and now Future Proof. On the 24th of November, we held a workshop for council on Future Proof, and on the 8th of December, council resolved to join with Future Proof. We, Dennis and I have been in meetings with Future Proof working groups and had discussions with Future Proof. So the next step for us here is appointing members to the different working groups that we have outlined in the table attached to the agenda. So for this item, it is recommended that we that Matamata-Piako Council appoints representatives Mayor Ash Tanner and Deputy Mayor Nia Goodger to the Future Proof Implementation Committee. And I would also like to note that on the 5th of April, in the Te Mana Whenua Forum, Te Pani Wilson from Future Proof will be presenting on the Ngā Koru Atu o Te Waka, which is the Tangata Whenua iwi representative side of Future Proof. Does anyone have any questions around that?
So just to clarify, I think we'll probably at the same time add number 3 in here and add in all the other appointments and leave Te Mana Whenua Forum to make the decision on. If you're uncomfortable with that? So
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't get that one. I understand that one.
do we, I just said, do we need to confirm all these other appointments as well?
No, I wouldn't think, I
we
wouldn't think
fine?
so at this stage, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Good.
All of the rest are just staff appointments that Don can do as and when he wishes to.
Right. Sounds good. We'll give him that job. Okay, then, so looking for somebody to move 1 and 2, the information you receive, and then Matamata-Piako District Council appoints representatives Mayor Ash Tanner and Deputy Mayor Nia Goodger to the Future Proof Implementation Committee.
James.
James Sainsbury and Don Arnold.
Yep.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Right, we'll change over the seats. Mayor Ash, you ready to
You
take your seat?
Would you like? Do you want to carry
Yeah,
on?
come and have your seat. I'll keep it warm for you.
Yeah, we're on track, so don't get us dragged behind.
Oh, yeah, don't get us get behind. The pressure's on, mate.
driving it well.
Yeah, you didn't use any hybridisation in it.
I'm going to sit in Morris's seat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And I'll put
No steam coming off your lash? I'm sorry, I forget you can't hear. No steam?
I have to put my mask on now, though.
Right. Okay, we've got the computer just flipped off. The gambling and TAB policy.
We've got Laura online.
Laura online. Morning, Laura.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, councillors.
Hey. Good morning, everybody, too, by the way, from me.
And can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we'll just get into it. So today I'm presenting to you the proposed gambling venue and TAB venue policies to approve for consultation. And as you know, we last reviewed these policies in 2019. In accordance with the relevant legislative requirements, we're required to undertake a review every 3 years. This enables some local decision making and helps to provide our community with the opportunity to have input into the provision of Class 4 gambling in our district. And this is one of the main objectives of our gambling policy. So you've been provided with several documents there that require approval today. In the recommendations, and I'll take them as read. There is a lot to read there, but so I'd just like to run through a few key points. And so in terms of the actual policies, we've drafted them in accordance with your guidance at the workshops held over the past few months and a couple last year. And we've also gathered some information in the social impact assessment. And we've also received a lot of information from our community through the pre-consultation survey that has also been circulated separately. And the policies aim to provide a balanced perspective between allowing for gambling, the continued allowance for availability for people to gamble, and also for the continued funds and to be provided to community groups, because we know that that's a real vital source of funding. And then when setting the cap on the number of venues and gaming machines, we're allowing for moderate growth. So in terms of the caps, as we discussed, we've kept this the same for quite a while now, since about 2017, I believe. So the gambling venue states a policy of a maximum of 15 venues and 201 gaming machines throughout the district, and the TAB venue policy allows for a maximum of 1 standalone TAB venue per township. And in terms of the changes to the policies, so that's been outlined in the statement of proposal for our community to have a look through. Basically, both of the policies have been streamlined to assist both applicants who may wish to apply for a venue license, to make it a bit clearer about what is required, and also for council when assessing applications, because it's not actually a policy that we have used very often. So it's been quite a good opportunity just to streamline some of those things. And the main changes, and also not including just the formatting and readability, are to require applicants to speak to all affected parties within 250 metres of a proposed venue. And if those parties wish to have their say at a hearing, then that will of course trigger a hearing, and then it will be publicly advertised. Currently, all applications are publicly advertised, so that's quite a change for you to consider there. And we have also added in a clause to allow for the consideration of the proximity of any other gambling opportunities to the application. So it's allowing for council to have the right to refuse consent on that basis, which is trying to mitigate any risk of having a large cluster of gambling in one area. And the TAB venue policy has been modified to match the layout of the gambling policy. Really, there has been there's been a new act, the Racing Industry Act 2020, since the last review, which it really has just brought very minor changes, and that TAB venues are no longer called TAB board venues, and the New Zealand Racing Board has been disestablished, and the TAB is established as a sole betting provider. So yeah, so that's sort of the main changes there. And in the social impact assessment, we also provide a summary of how we've how the information that we've used in these reviews. It provides the facts on the latest data that we have on the impact of gambling, and also some of the positive aspects as well. So it shows trends in the venues and machines both across the district, so people can see it is slightly declining, and provides a comparison with the national data as well. Also, we look at problem gambling referrals and what our gaming machine profits are doing, which are slightly increasing over time as opposed to the national trend, which is slowly decreasing. And also we're looking at grants returned to the community. So we've provided two sets of figures for that. We've had the Department of Internal Affairs have just recently started reporting on grant data, so that's given us a real, it's received directly from the trust, so it's given us a real good accurate picture of the funding returned. And also we've provided the Problem Gambling Foundation figures as well, so people can sort of see both sets of figures there. And the consultation period is actually starting from Monday through until the 19th of April. And we are holding a hearing for those who choose to present to their submissions, and that'll be held on the 11th of May, and it might go into the 12th of May as well, depending on how many people would like to speak to their submission. And we really look forward to hearing what people think. So it's a good opportunity for them to get involved and to tell us. Yeah, so I think that's sort of all I had to go through. And if you'd like to just ask me any questions, I'll be happy to help, and just ensure that you're comfortable with each of the documents before they go out for consultation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Any questions or comments? Neil? Oh. A lot of work done by Laura, good work. So I'm quite happy to move these three as we go and see how it goes from there with the public, really. Yeah. Okay. Russell?
Yeah, there is a lot of work on both those there, and I'm happy to second it. Just comment on the density of gaming machines. The amount of clubs we have in the district is, like each town has an RSA, most of them have other clubs as well, which is not open to the public. You've got to be a member. So that would affect the density of clubs within the district. So I think having an open slather of X amount of people within the district versus having machines who've got a sort of doesn't really fit the bill when you have to be a member to visit probably 5 or 6 of those clubs. Yeah, that's true.
Oh yes, I see what you're saying. I could add a disclaimer to those figures in the policy just to explain that.
And I do know
a bit of clarification
that clubs like that their income is down because of COVID, and I can tell you that Tiara RSA has been threatened with losing its gaming machines because of that. We cannot meet the percentage required, so
right.
We won't be the only club.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions or correspondence for Laura. If that's the case, we have Moved by Neil Bridger, seconded by Russell Smith. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? James, is that you? Please. Okay, all good, okay. Kerry, thank you guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have the Matamata Swim Zone Indoor Pool Working Party update, and we've got a couple of distinguished gentlemen in the room. We've got Bill Cooksley and Shane Brodie, and I've just received a text message from your boss, Matt, and he's watching live stream. Well, I've got to come up to them, I think,
I just was going to comment before they start. Be very appreciative of Sport Waikato, Shane and Bill, and the work that they have done to get this issue to you in this time frame. It was beyond our capacity, and I think the process they've run and where they've got to has actually been fantastic, certainly from our perspective, from a staffing perspective. So really appreciate all the work that they've done, and the working party, of course.
Okay, yeah, welcome to the boardroom, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Morena, ko Bill Cooksley toko ingoa. Good morning, Mayor Ash, Deputy Mayor Goodger, fellow councillors both in person and online, and also council staff in person and online. Thank you so much on behalf of the Working Party to provide the opportunity to give an update as to where we're at. It's been a pretty rigorous process to get to here, and the collaboration and work that both council staff, elected members and community members have done to get to this point has been outstanding. So we're really just here to, as I say, do an introduction of the report. I'm going to hand over to Shane very soon with regards to just going through that a little bit more. We'll take the report as read, and then I'll just pass over to Shane, and he's going to go through and just put a few highlights, and then we'll go to questions after that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill, and thank you, Mayor and councillors, for your time today. So, as Bill highlighted, take this report as read. I'm just going to go through a couple of key notes. What we're after today, the working group, is that council approved recommendation for the working party to investigate a feasible medium-term solution for covering the indoor pool. And that council approves the recommendation for the working party to remove a permanent roof or no roof option as a solution. How the working party got there was following council meeting late last year in August. It was suggested to manage the risk of unintended consequences. Council would establish a working party to prepare a business case on identified options and consider its preferred approach for the Matamata swim zone. This paper, presented to council today, forms the basis of a business case and information obtained to date when assessing the initial proposed options of not roofing the pool, replacing the roof with a temporary structure, replacing the roof with a permanent solution, or a mixture of those options. There have been 3 working group meetings undertaking a SWOT analysis of the proposed options. The working group took into account the wider view of the facility and other associated work being undertaken by the complex, included the further seismic assessment of the squash club, while the users and community needs were central point of focus. What we know is Swim Zone Matamata and the squash club has been a learn to swim training facility with both a heated and outdoor pool for many years, and playing a huge role in the participation, development, and success for Matamata-Piako locals. Providing aquatic provision is part of council's core business and contributes to the key district outcome of healthy communities and key services such as water safety. And previous reports highlight that Matamata-Piako, like the region, currently does not have enough indoor aquatic provision. The swim zone has seen a drop-off in participation, in particular of learn to swim, since the roof was removed, impacting revenue, but also importantly, impacting the ability for children to receive lifelong swimming lessons. The indoor pool at Swim Zone Matamata is one of 6 community pools that provide indoor pool provision regionally and therefore is classified as a sub-regional asset and plays an important part in the regional aquatics network. However, what we know is that it is an aging asset, and various reports highlight that it is at the end of its life, near at the end of its life, with recommended facility upgrades. There, however, remains a lack of detailed knowledge around the expectancy of some of those critical life expectancy of some of those critical pool assets associated with the indoor pool. Undertaking a SWOT analysis of the options, it was agreed by the working party that the options should be explored should be reduced to 3 by removing the option referred to as a mixture of permanent and temporary. It was agreed that solutions on the market are naturally a mixture of permanent and temporary options, and that the information gathered on those options would be adequate. Agreement was also made to replace the word temporary with medium-term solution. Temporary solutions are considered marquee type options which do not provide the best customer experience or provide adequate solutions for facility operations. The working group therefore explained the remaining 3 options in depth, which are highlighted in this paper, working through firstly, the risk of investment versus the risk of not investing, and secondly, the risk of a medium-term solution versus a permanent solution. Once it was highlighted to the group that the risk of not investing was perceived as a greater risk, the 2 options were further explored. Through exploring 2 companies that are currently on the market that are being proposed around New Zealand, being StructureFix and New Zealand Temporary Solutions, the working group was able to further do analysis on what a medium-term or what a permanent solution looked like. This paper has brought the working group to its recommendation to continue to explore and finalise a medium-term solution, noting that further information needs to be obtained, including the finalisation of a quotation of the proposed medium-term solution, a detailed report on the life expectancy of some of the critical pool assets, and a detailed seismic assessment of the squash facility, which is currently underway, whether this would have any implications. However, initial understanding is that the work at the squash club would only be a factor if a permanent solution was explored. So I now pass it over for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Shane. Questions? Right, Neil, you've just got one, Shane, here. It says in the report here that you might have an update a bit more on the price, that we've got a bit more firmer than the 400 plus just. Have we got anything?
Yeah, so yesterday I talked to the New Zealand Temporary Solutions. Like I said, unfortunate that their name is NZ Temporary Solutions. They're proposing a medium-term solution offer option. They recommended today that it will still be within a, yesterday it will still be in a $440,000 price range. However, the original time frame of, I think, a couple weeks freight, a couple weeks installation has probably been pushed out. They're supporting Tonga and providing some of facilities post the eruption over there. So that I'm still working on a time frame, but it could be about a 3-month process post sign-off at the moment.
So, yeah, I guess that probably then makes a decision whether we try and have it for possibly not going to make this winter anyway, are we? Yeah.
What they did provide is that they've probably got a solution over in Sydney that they can ship immediately. So within a 6-week period, there would be a solution up, but the proposed thermo roof covering option has to be actually made to the parameters of the pool. So that's going to take a bit of time getting that material in. So there is an option for a single layer to come within a 6-week time frame, and then another 4 to 6 weeks after that be the final solution being installed.
Thank you. Okay, any questions from our online? No? James?
Yeah, no, not so much a question, just adding my support to the report. Thank you again, Sport Waikato, for all your efforts at advancing this, and that really I sort of see this report as locking in the momentum that we've got, which is that exactly what the report says. Temporary solution is not a good fit. A permanent solution is a much, much bigger project that needs to look at much more broadly across the organisation, and so that what's been proposed here is about satisfying those needs in the medium term. So it's really about keeping focus and keeping things progressing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Any Sue?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Thanks, guys, because you worked through this when people were sort of missing in action and coming and going. So you've done a magnificent job of putting this together at such a short time. I think, you know, we've got to see this as, I mean, my thought pattern is it's sort of stage one of a bigger picture, but that bigger picture can come. At the moment, we're just dealing with what we need, what our needs are at the moment. And as an equisized girl, as you all know,
you've got a conflict of interest.
I might have to get my woolly coat out, but anyway, I think we've got to move forward in some way, shape, or form, at least make a decision. So yeah, well done, guys. You've done a magnificent job.
Okay, thanks very much, guys, for the report. I'm sure you're possibly proud of listening to it as we speak, and no, very, very good work. And yeah, so if there's no further questions, if I got someone that will move the recommendation.
Yep. I'm happy to move it.
Adrian, and someone will second, James Sainsbury. Thanks, James. All in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Aaron? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Hamilton Waikato Tourism. Nicola's just joining us. Good morning, Nicola. How are you?
Good morning. Gosh, it's a busy screen. You're all little dots on the screen. Good morning.
Hey, we're all ears, Nicola. And great meeting you the other night too.
Thank you. It was lovely to meet you too properly rather than across a room. So lovely to meet you. Thank you for having me. Look, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Nicola Greenwell, tōko ingoa. Gives me great pleasure to be here with you today, well, virtually from my office to your office, as the Interim General Manager of Hamilton and Waikato Tourism. I'm just going to pop a slide up on the screen and share our screen. I've just come from a Zoom meeting to a Teams meeting, so let's hope that I get this round the right way and do the screen sharing right. You'd think we'd be well versed at that now, wouldn't we?
Yeah, looks good from here.
Good, good. So look, this is our 6-month report, as you know, so from July through to December 2021, and you've got the full report in your agenda pack, so please refer to that. I'm not going to go through that inch by inch. I'm going to assume that that's taken on board. Firstly, what I thought we would do is just recap what the 6 months actually looked like, because it's easy to forget, isn't it, that we spent a lot of our time in those bleed in red, orange, level 3, level 4, COVID, Delta, Omicron. It's been a messy 6 months. So I just wanted to remind ourselves that while we had life that was relatively normal up until July, when Delta arrived in the community in August, level 4 lockdowns for the country. September, we were let out. Sounds like it's let out of jail, but no, let out of level 3 and 4 into the new Delta level 2, while Auckland, our biggest market, remained in level 4. So while we had a little bit of freedom, it was only 3 weeks, it was short-lived, and then most of Waikato returned to level 3. Now, understanding, of course, that Matamata-Piako, your district, was not in level 3, which was lucky in one sense, but in another, you were absolutely impacted because of the remainder of our Waikato region and Auckland, our biggest market, being at level 3 and 4. It takes out a lot of visitation, and even other sectors were not able to get supplies. So lockdown, our local domestic market not travelling, Auckland visitation absolutely down, bed nights, tourism, events, hospitality, you name it, everything was impacted. So even now we're still impacted with our ongoing red settings. So it just sort of sets the scene for our 6-month report, unfortunately. This information you've got in your report, but I just wanted to touch base that our highlights for this is the Waikato as a whole, as a region. Our tourism electronic spend is sitting at that 660 million. Now, you'll probably recall much larger visitor spend numbers being talked about pre-COVID. There was bigger spend, of course, but the way that MB have measured visitor spend has changed in that time frame as well, which doesn't help what our memory brings back to us. So this is tourism electronic card transactions, not total spend. No longer does it capture online payment of invoices or online bookings. No longer is it have an adjustment or an estimated adjustment for cash spend. That is pure electronic card. So as a region, we're still sitting around 5th, which is fantastic, with 5% share of the domestic spend. So we're still tracking okay. Our commercial guest nights, again, data is a nightmare. They've changed how that is done as well. But we're still tracking okay at 35.7% occupancy. This is across all of Waikato. We know we've got pinch points. Business events, we still sit around 6% market share. We know that that's going to become challenging as we move into these next phase of probably 12 months while other venues in Christchurch and Wellington come online. So we're actively chasing more business there. The rest of that information you've got in your report. I'm going to move on to Matamata-Piako. This is what matters for you. So again, impact of level 3 and 4 for some of the 6 months for you, but your markets were at level 3 and 4 regardless of what you were at. Commercial accommodation there at 38%. This is for the 12 months ending December. So that's right on track with New Zealand's average of 37% occupancy. So, you know, okay, staying an average of 1.9 nights, resulting in 71,000 guest nights. If we put some trend lines on those graphs, we can see that they are trending slightly upwards, despite it feeling really gloomy out there. And then your domestic card expenditure is there on the right, 76 million, which is 4% up on the 12-month prior. So again, year ending December, so that's December 21 against December 2020 is 4% up. Now, I wouldn't normally do this, but I am going to today. We've got our January figures out for the tourism electronic spend. And while it's not part of this 6-month report, I thought it painted quite a nice picture here, that it's gone up now to 77 million, which is 8% rise on year. And we can then see that graph there with 2019 through to 2022, remembering 12-month end in January. 2019 to 2022, we're actually tracking a little bit up, which is quite heartening. Obviously 2020, that 12 months was strong, and so there was good growth there, and we've come down from that, but we can see that there is going to be some return to, you know, there is a little bit of light there at the end of that tunnel. Again though, our February, March and how much longer red continues will impact on that gravely. And look, I'm really keeping this quite brief because I know you'll have questions and your time is of essence for everybody. So all of the activity that's in the report I've captured here over our 6-month picture of green, orange and red. While we've been in lockdown, that doesn't mean that our team have been any less passionate or active, that's for sure. They've remained completely on target with promoting our region and absolutely keeping Waikato and our districts, Matamata-Piako included, top of mind. The Mighty Local campaign was reactivated in August as a response to going into level 3 and 4. So that's encouraging our locals and our residents to support local businesses. We've reactivated that again now so that we can be encouraging our people to, while red seems a little bit scary and people are hunkering down at home and not travelling, it is actually safe to engage in our tourism operators in our hospitality sector, and we're actively encouraging people to still get out there, go to Hobbiton, go out for dinner, support our locals, support our businesses. So that's really active in the marketplace again now. Borders have been closed all this time. However, international marketing, well, we've reduced it. We have continued to work with travel trade and ensuring that we're training travel agents and travel media abroad to ensure the region and Matamata-Piako are still well represented in that training. We need to be kept top of mind. Obviously, there's the 5-step approach to opening the borders that were announced a little while ago now, with plans through to October. Of course, last week the government announced a speed up of that for the returning Kiwis from Australia and further afield of the world, that they can now come home without isolating, which is fantastic. It's great, but we really need the borders open to our main visitors without isolation as well. So we're really eagerly hoping that that will be fast-tracked as well, and maybe this announcement a couple of weeks ago might well give some indication of further advancing that. Right throughout lockdown and red, look, the team stay really active with our operators. We're on the phone with them, we're emailing them, we're providing webinar content for them, mainly to keep actively supporting them. And sometimes that's just as simple as picking up the phone and hearing, how are you? Just simply asking that question can mean a lot to some of our operators. So there is a lot of well-being provided, and some of that's helping them navigate the system and securing subsidies when they're available. Not a lot available at the moment under RED, unfortunately. It's a real challenge, but just being there and hearing how their journey is, encouraging where we can. We, of course, as you know, secured the maximum amount available to RTOs through central government of funding through the STAP, Strategic Tourism Asset Protection funding, and the Tourism Reset funding, along with our Regional Event Fund. So we were really active in ensuring that we secured the most that we possibly could, and we did. So that's really helped supplement our income from yourselves and our other funding councils, and really help to accelerate some of those projects that we've had on our to-do list and on our tourism opportunities plan for a little while, but didn't have the funds to really activate those. So that includes our destination management plan. That includes an ambassador program for Matamata-Piako and our other districts. It's a food and beverage tourism strategy. That's a sustainability and regenerative tourism. There's a lot of projects undergo at the moment. That probably sums it up for all of what I've got for you today, other than the report that you've already got. And to assure thank you to Matamata-Piako District Council for ongoing support, both financially and morally. Our well-being as well. Rachel and the team are fantastic in checking in on us as well, and we really appreciate that support. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola, and it's sort of no real surprises with the figures, considering that Auckland were in the lockdown for about 4 months there, and obviously they contribute hugely to our area. So
it's we've always identified Auckland as it's a real advantage of our location as being on Auckland's doorstep, and then of course the flip side of that was that our visitation is really reliant on that Auckland market being free to travel. And look, that was felt up and down the country. As with our regional event fund, we work a lot closer now with Taupo and Rotorua Ruapehu, and they were feeling it the instant that Auckland went into lockdown. They felt it too, and they felt it with us being in lockdown. So it's a flow-on effect up and down the country.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with some businesses in Matamata, that food places, and they were saying they were over 50% down with Auckland being out of the picture. Okay, any questions for Nicola? Online? Donna was. Donna. Oh, Donna.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Nicola. Hey, thanks for the report. It's really great reading these 6 monthly reports. and just a couple of comments. I know I live on a state highway and it's noticeable the traffic. A lot of trucks still, but there's not many cars, and obviously Auckland just aren't leaving their city at the moment. Just a comment actually, and a vote, and just to say thank you. We get the Herald every day, and on the Tuesday we always get that travel insert. And I've just noticed lately over the last couple of months, and there was actually one this week, bits about our district. And there was a great one about the walks that we had in and around Te Araha, and a great article, and it was great to get those advertisements out there to the public that we've got some cool stuff happening. And thanks for getting it into the Herald, because that covers a lot of people. So
thank you.
Thank you.
And through COVID, Tourism New Zealand have started working differently, and they've now got a domestic marketing team. So that's been a great asset for us to align with Tourism New Zealand and activate and dovetail, collaborate with all of their initiatives as well. So it's helped to elevate our regional input into the media. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was a really good article promoting our district for sure. Okay, any more questions? No? Have I got someone that will be happy to move the recommendation that the information be received?
Happy to move.
Wow.
Donna, seconds.
Thank
All
you.
in favour, please say aye.
All right.
Carried. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That was short and sweet. Thank you.
It was. We're gonna break for a morning tea now. Have you got some scones or is it anything, Nicola? Or no?
No, I'm sorry. I think I'll be on dried old biscuits. I'll go and make a coffee though and have one with you.
Okay, thanks.
Look,
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Right, we'll break for morning tea. Graham, and I believe Leslie, our staff member, is also going to assist Graham. So good morning, Graham. Welcome to the boardroom, and they're going to give us an update on the SPA project.
Good morning, thank you. Good to be here. Good to see you all again. Yes, I'll just talk to some of the key things in the report.
Sorry, Graham.
It's okay.
It's on mute, but
Thought there was someone coming in remotely.
We'll make this shout later on.
Chocolate.
yes.
Probably the big task that we've worked through this year is doing the risk assessment and creating the risk. Come on,
Just catch it. It's coming this way.
It's coming around. Is doing the risk assessment and getting the risk matrix, the risk register developed using the expertise of Leslie and the folks at Greenstone Group. So that's a living, breathing document, of course. We have it there. It'll be added to, and things will be added, things will be removed, things will be amended as we go along, and new information comes in. So that's clearly a very important piece to have worked on. Leslie can provide some perspectives, but it's a big long list. And it would appear that what we've got now is we've got a small number of risks that are sitting there as high risk. Most sit in that low to moderate category, but we've got a number there that sit as high risk at this point around consenting, potential budget given cost escalations in construction, stakeholder engagement, and just making sure we get everything aligned, which really goes to our communication and engagement plan to reduce that risk. And the other one that was identified was, which you guys will be able to perhaps comment on, is any local government reform and how that may or may not impact on the project. So those are the ones that are sitting at this stage as identified as high risk. Is there anything else, Leslie, that you wanted to?
No, not really. I think the process is quite robust. Each company or business does risk assessment slightly differently. So the way that Greenstone have set it up is not how I would do it. So I'm planning on changing it into the structure it will use going forward for NPDC.
So then you'll have an aligned architecture with your normal NPDC sort of structure. Good to have that knocked off, and now as a living document, which we'll, as I say, we'll keep updating it. It'll be a standing agenda item at each project governance group meeting from here on in. Did you have anything else on that, Leslie? Yeah. So we've got another meeting with Greenstone Group this Friday just to tease out some additional detail around consenting.
Yeah, and Mark Nord will be
coming with that. Will join us on that one.
Yeah, and we've also had some comment back from the comms people.
Yes, so that's right.
How we get the messages in line.
Yep, exactly. Geothermal water resource consent. So was due to have a meeting this Friday in the Domain with regional council representatives and WSP who are progressing that. Only one of the team at WSP has tested positive for COVID, so that meeting has been unfortunately deferred. He's quite a key person, Marius, who's got a long, he was with Opus before they became WSP, he's got a long history with the Domain, so he's kind of an important person to have there, so unfortunately we'll have to defer that. But the process is underway. Another key task that we've got up and running is what we call the shaping of the new facilities design and the work that we've commissioned Visitor Solutions to do, including all the sort of experiences and things that will go in there. So that's very early stage, but that is underway. I've just got to top and tail the final brief on that today and get them motoring. The other thing that we have in draft now is a really detailed project plan that using Greenstone Group architecture and expertise. So I've got a draft sitting there to review, and I'll be meeting with them on Friday to sort of finalise that. Although it's in draft, and it's a living document that will evolve as new information comes in, but it's a detailed project plan which will give us timelines and program and all the sort of key things that are in there. So important, supply of fresh water into any new facility. So I had a meeting with Carl Pavlovich in January or February, where I guess apart from, we're looking at the concept of intercepting the Mill Road pipeline pre-treatment and bringing the raw water into the facility. We need to check the water and make sure it's okay to do that without treatment, but in concept, Carl's comfortable with that. The amount that any new facility, we've got to get the numbers all finalised, but just on projections at this point, is not really material, compared to the overall sort of offtake in the town. And the other sort of option there is to look at taking fresh water out of a bore, and there's on the face of it, there's a number of disused bores dotted around the place. So we've got to do some investigation and see if they can be brought back to life and what all that might look like. I think geometrics in town here have got a lot of that historical knowledge, so we'll tap into them. But that's clearly the key component. So look, those are the sort of key tasks that we're either working on or have completed. So yes, although the visitor solutions work is sort of whirring away in the background, there's a bunch of other things that we need to be doing as well. So we seem to be heading in the right direction.
Okay. Open to questions for Graham. Sue.
Graham, then will we be close to making a kind of decision?
When we get the work that Visitor Solutions is doing, once we have that, that will include costings and different analysis. So that will provide us with some pretty rich information where we can then come to council, due process with the council and the project governance group, but essentially from that can flow a recommendation. So what does the timeline look like for that? Assuming that they complete that work in May, by the end of May, I'm sort of thinking that allow ourselves maybe a month there might be some further questions or analysis and just getting people together to do things, including reporting back into council. So at this stage, I'm sort of envisaging by the end of June, we'll have, or very early July, we'll have something where we're coming back and saying, this is the thinking, this is the recommendation, assuming that process runs to that timeline. So one of my tasks clearly is to get Visitor Solutions moving with the work. So I'm on the whole.
Neil. Graham, if I see this as a little bit of good reality, and then the fact that talking about a 15% increase already in the price, so that's obviously going to be quite a considerable amount on 18.9 million. So are we looking, or are you looking at staged development now? Because to be fair, I can only see that being the only way that we can actually get, personally, that we can get this off the ground.
Right.
Because I just can't see that, that's 23 million now. And then by the time it gets built and the size, I mean, really, we want to try and get some small little wins. That's my thoughts anyway, because I see that there's some thoughts here, but I mean, it'd be a decade before we get this away otherwise. You know, like, so, really, I mean, we can't get anybody to do a job now. How are we going to get somebody to do a $20 million build for us?
Well, that's interesting you say that. Talking to Greenstone, they think that this is the type of project that would attract contractors. And I know they're all, we know their situation in terms of being busy and everything, but their view was the nature of this project's actually,
attractive.
One would be to do pretty sexy. So actually, the sort of blue chip guys would probably be quite interested in doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately for the wrong reasons, because they know that the council, they consider it as an endless pocket.
Well, I suppose against that, yeah, no, I take your point. One of Greenstone's sort of strong suits, I suppose, is sort of around that procurement and running pretty thorough processes. But I think going to your point there, Neil, is that once we have that work from Visitor Solutions, if we need to sort of pull that back and say, well, that's great, but actually we'll scale it back or something like that, then I think that's the point when we can take a look at that.
Yeah, so I'm not really worried so much about scaling it back. I just don't want to have it like something that it comes to us as just as all or none, because I'm thinking otherwise you might find that there's more people thinking it's none, just because of what can happen. Whereas in fact, if you said we can build this within 5 years and this within 10 years, I think then the average person will accept it more so than just a big chunk, which is what I was looking at it's going to become.
Okay. Well, again,
eat the elephant in small bites.
Yeah. So I think once we get that information from, because they're going to provide 3 options, so we can look at those, and they won't be vastly different, but there'll be variations. We can look at them and say, well, we don't want to spend that, we want to spend this, and just pull it back.
Yeah, James. Thank you.
Yeah, probably the first thing I was just going to comment on Neil's concern there. I mean, the direction from the council was do the whole project. So that's what the working group's responding to. So if that's changing now, then we probably need to make sure that that is done formally. Thank you for the report. Really pleased to see that the risk register has been done up. Are we going to be able to access that and review it, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't, it's a lot to go through, so I didn't want to kind of run through it today, but absolutely that's available for people to review. So I can get that sent round, no problem at all.
Cool, and probably the other sort of parallel to Neil's point, and this has come up previously, is just this idea that all of this is going to come to us in one session, and that sort of the outcome of that is going to be the decision. And part of that is if there are things that we or I think are important, but it didn't even occur to the working group to look at it, like, do I bring that up at the full program decision point, or is there ways that we're going to be working through this more progressively?
Yeah, look, I think there's a stage process where we've got something distilled from the Visitor Solutions work, and we feed that in, with some commentary around that, and I guess that sort of internal, what I call the internal process, and then people can go away and take on board whatever, and then come back with a final recommendation.
Yeah, I guess probably an example of this would be the fact-finding mission that you went on, where, to the best of my knowledge, that report wasn't presented formally at council. I have some concerns and questions around what was included, what wasn't included in the analysis that was completed, but that's still sort of sitting out there open for me to litigate at the along with all of the other stuff. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to build up some, lock in some of the momentum. You've got some really good things going on, and I'm wondering whether there's a way that can be built on rather than it just being all in one session. But again, it's probably really a slightly different angle to Neil's thing of, like, if it's an enormous thing that's difficult to access in terms of all of the things that we need to tick off, then that can be a problem. But I'm not so sure that's the working group's problem as just sort of that interface between the council who's making the decision and the information that's coming from the working group.
Yeah. Let me have a think about how we might be able to just facilitate something there. Yeah, no, I understand your point.
So for me, this is where we're blurring the lines around a working group and a governance group and us as a council, and where the inputting occurs. And I guess that's where you have that two-way conversation, but it's how we're achieving that. Like it's, yeah, I'm not, you know, now with us trying to make comment, which we can, but how do we do that in an appropriate way? Because this is a project governance group that's been tasked with this job. How do we best give feedback in this journey, I think, is the question here, because what James has brought up, yeah, maybe, and what Neil said, we sit outside the working group. So I'm just questioning our process here, because we have got a project governance group tasked with the responsibility. Where do we sit as councillors in providing this feedback?
Well, technically you've got a representative on it.
Yeah.
On the group. I think what we've been dealing with today, the working party's been dealing with, firstly, them getting their head around this whole thing. Secondly, dealing with some what I'd call foundation stones, e.g. the geothermal, the geotech, the siting, and the next phase, which is really the critical aspect to it, is reviewing, given that the brief for the working party was to look at a facility based on the conceptual work that had been done previously and look at the feasibility of that and all the rest of it. I think the critical phase is once that report comes back from Visitor Solutions, and that'll be very revealing.
Yeah, what it could look like. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be, here's some concepts, here's some potential locations, and here is the estimated costs, and here's the business case based on the assumptions of this, this, and this. That is stop go point. That is, hey, this is getting a bit rich for us, or the risks are too high. Because I've also talked to Graham about making sure that, and to Leslie, about making sure all the unfinished work that will still be relevant, such as resource consent, being one of the more critical ones, are identified from the path forward. Now, that's council's stop, go, or amend position, because we have talked about, okay, identify some fallback positions, because fallback might be that this concept can be done in stages. This concept, the most extreme one would be, no, forget it, but let's spend some money on our current spas and do it up. And let's do a business case around that. But I think my personal opinion is you will need the visitor solution numbers before we can have a meaningful conversation.
Yeah, I think our conversation is a little bit premature at the moment, because we need visitor solutions to come back to us. And we've actually taken a bit of when we're focused on the 18.9 million, that if we were casting our minds back too, that was based on a standalone big complex that had bohemian room, showers, all kinds of whistles and bells with the gold-plated things. We're sort of now starting to wonder about the more open communal pool style concept, which I'm guessing would be a heck of a lot cheaper too. You know, it could be wrong, but I think, like Don's saying, we don't really know yet. We're not there yet. And if we do end up landing on some more in the bush thing, open pools, for example, what does that cost? What does it look like? Can they be staged? Can you do a big pool up there and then, 5 years later do another one up further or whatever? So I think, I don't think we need to, I think we've just got to wait a little bit until Visitor Solutions and Greenstone Group come back to us, because we can't even price anything yet. So it's all up in the air, you know, like, and none of us are spa builders, or we don't have the expertise in that, but we do have people that we're engaging with that do have that vast experience. So, and do know what works and what doesn't work, and have been there and done that. So I think we have to put confidence in them and wait and see. And then at the end of the day, if we get the wobbly knees at the end of it, we go, no, that's out of our scope, well, that's so be it. But we've got to do it due justice and go through this process. But I don't think we're there for this conversation.
Yeah. So my point is that it's not really up to us as councillors to be making suggestions
Not
to
at
the
the moment.
governance group. That's what I'm trying to sort of flesh out here.
Yeah, we do fully understand it, and Graham takes on board. He's fully aware that the communication lines between, but we had a couple of little obstacles, not obstacles, but things to get through first, and that was i.e. the water, what was available, and obviously the geotech, the initial findings. So we had to get through them, because if that was a cross, then game over. So I think we've just got to wait a little bit longer, and in the next few months, and then, well, it's not like we're going to flick the trigger and say, yeah, let's go, let's get them to build something.
No.
That's not where we're at yet.
I think there's, a key piece of work once we've got that Visitor Solutions thing, and who knows what that will throw up in itself, but, we will need to do an investment case. If anything looks quite good in there, then we'll need to do an investment case that people, in my view, we have to logically do an investment case, so that, because if there was private money coming in, never mind, ratepayer money, you'd want to have that as a sort of
It's all part of due diligence at the end of the day.
Correct. Yeah.
I'll go to Tina, and then Caitlin, and James. So I'll go Tina, Caitlin, James. Thanks, Tina.
Thanks, Ash. I hear what James is saying, and I also hear what Adrian's saying. I think what we need to remember is that anywhere that looks like 23 million is probably one of the largest projects that's not built on, that we haven't had to do, like all the big ones with stuff is done as wastewater treatment stations and all sorts of things like that. This is a huge scoping project. It is highly public orientated. It's a lot of money if we go down this track, and so it's around having an open and transparent process at all levels, which it is, because we're currently in an open public forum. And I think when we get to the stop, go or amend point, I think because it's such a big decision, councillors who make that final decision need to have everything in front of them in order to make that decision. So that would be my only comment. I'll just remind everybody that, 23 million is not our normal, here you go, subcommittee. You can have a $200,000 budget. This is a $23 million project. And so the fear or the tracking is real. And so, yeah, I'd be keen to see some sort of hub file put together with some of those risk assessments in them, so that councillors who are interested now can actually have a look at that information as we go through.
Yeah, no, that's a good comment. Caitlin.
Thanks, Ash. Yes, just following on, I agree also with Tina. That's good to have some tracking and tracing along the way. In saying that, I do have full faith in the working group we've got with it. There's some super talent in there, and some great minds coming up with all the questions that need to be asked in this particular process. So I'm really happy with Graham, with your work that you're doing and who's collected there, and our representative having Ash on board. So keep on going, and we'll see what happens as we get these reports through. And then, have a bit of more access along the way. But all in all, I think it's tracking really well, especially considering the times we're in. So, yeah, thumbs up.
Thanks, Caitlin. James.
Yeah, just following on from that, like, so a lot of this is around whether we could do it. It should come to no surprises anyone that I've got real questions about whether we should be doing it. I don't. There is not a good track record of public entities investing other people's money in commercial ventures, and I was hoping during the fact-finding mission that risk was unpacked in some way. And so what I'm really looking for, and it wasn't, there was a huge cash transfer from the Huranui District Council to Hamner Springs, which wasn't unpacked in any particular way. Waiwera Hot Springs, which is a disaster that's been well covered in the media, but wasn't part of the fact-finding mission. So what I'm looking for is reassurance that when we come to this big meeting, these questions which I had for the mayor and the deputy mayor when it was first adopted in the long-term plan, are actually addressed. And if it's there, fantastic. But I've brought it up repeatedly, and there's been an unwillingness to discuss this. So do I put brakes on it in the big meeting down the end, or do I raise it now and look for reassurance that there's this political overlay, not the operational stuff? Can we build it? Is it going to be a viable business? But should we be doing it? Is that actually been triaged and covered? And I've seen no evidence of that. That's not to say it's not happening, but there seems to be an unwillingness to discuss that. So I wanted to raise it early so that we make sure it is part of the final discussion.
Cool. Bruce.
Well, I think I've got complete confidence at the moment in the process, and I'm comfortable with it. And I think the amount of work that's going into it is probably better than what was put into the cycle bridge over the Auckland Harbour Bridge. So we've got, we're making progress.
Neil.
So, Leslie, probably one of my other biggest concerns would be is like the timing of this now, Graham. So, like as you said, local body elections. So we're all sitting around here doing the due diligence, so to speak, subject to James's concerns. But by the time we get to actually making a decision or two on this, it looks like it's going to be after the change of the makeup of the council. So so then we're going to have to start, somebody's going to have to start again probably as well. So any thoughts, do you think that, timing wise from Graham and Leslie, because I mean, we've got to do it properly here, but I can also see that I don't know whether this is the right decision to be making in October, when 2 weeks later there's a whole new council coming in. And how long we have to decide. Sooner or later we have to talk about this in the room, that it's going to become a point where some people here are going to retire, some may not be re-elected, and everything else as well. So you've just got, and they've got their 3 years of working on it, or even longer for some people. Yeah.
I think once I've got the detailed plan finalised,
which would be
probably the next couple of weeks. Yep.
From Visitor Solutions.
No, this is the detailed project plan and program with Greenstone Group. I think once I have that, again, it's a living document which will be updated, but we'll get it sort of finalised as a living document. Then we'll be able to look at that and say, well, here's what some timelines look like, taking your point around elections and possible changes. So let's get that information. I can feed that in and see what that looks like.
Leslie, you got any help for us there? The risk register, when have you got the decision
based? Council elections on the risk register, and we're saying that's a very high risk, but I'm not sure, to reduce that risk, I'm not sure that there's much we can do about that.
Yep. So what have we got like sort of in there for, what have we got for like a, so to speak, decision day?
I don't think that's
I
really,
think it's part of the
yeah, that's not really,
staging gate.
yeah, that's not in the risk register so much as it'll be in the plan program, the detail plan.
Yeah.
But maybe what we could do is have a risk session as well with the project governance group
Yeah.
and see what else comes out.
Yeah.
It might be a good step.
So we're going to workshop that at the next governance group meeting, which is 7th of April.
Well, I think the visitor solutions information is critical. Obviously,
yeah.
As I say, it's a major gate. And we had talked about hoping to report back to council on that in June. Is that fair, right?
Yeah, well, as I say, I think, back into June or early July, there'll be some news to feed in. Assuming visitor solutions get that work done by the end of May, might be some back and forth and things, but then, internal process from there. So I'm kind of estimating that would be back into June.
Okay. All right. No further questions. So I got something that will move the recommendation that the information be received. And anyone to move with that? Caitlin, thanks, Caitlin. Someone to second that. Russell, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Thanks, Graham. Thanks for that update.
Thank you.
And yep, we'll catch up with that at our next meeting.
Indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Mayoral diary. I'll take that as read. Is there any? No, can't get the file up on this one. Oops. Any? Any questions on the Mayoral diary? It's pretty. There's a common theme. Lots of inquiries from business owners. Spend a lot of my days talking to residents, business owners. A lot of concern, anxiety out there, which has been common over the probably about 2 years now. So that doesn't seem to change, and unfortunately, we're hearing about businesses that are potentially going to close, which is not great for our district. So I think we're in some challenging times, unfortunately. But I'll take that as read unless there's any particular questions on some of them. Donna.
Yes, just one quick question. I see. Did you have a quick stroll down the Morans River Walk? How's that coming along?
Oh, yeah. So just went for a little bit of a peek at what was happening, and the pillars and posts are in for the bridge, the swing bridge, which is looking really good. And I had a chat to the guys that are building it. They were just doing the tricky bit over on the Greenleaf site, and they were progressing really well through there. And then they said, and then they'll be away. So just getting the tricky bits done, and then the easy bits will flow after that. But yeah, I think it's going to be really good. There's a lot of positive feedback out there in the public too. They're really happy that it started. They're all looking forward to it, being able to use it. It's going to be quite a decent walk, So yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure Neil's really happy.
Neil did send a photo out. Did you not see it? A photo of. I have got a few photos here. I can send them to councillors. All right.
Yep, love to see them.
Okay. So I'll move that report. No other questions online? No? Okay, I'll move the report. If I get someone that will second the information be received. Adrian, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks, guys. Have I got someone that will move me into public excluded, please? Russell Smith will move and Sue seconds. All in favour, please say
Yep.
Additional business. Sorry.
I just did it once we closed on.
Oh.
We worked back into it.
Yeah, like, sorry, she went here.
No, no, that's okay. Yep.
Few councillors going, former company, Sue's going to be a. Yeah, so we're back on live stream, just letting you know.
So did everyone get the email I flipped out quickly this morning?
Yeah.
Everyone got access to it?
Yeah.
Sorry, Martin, I put together a quick report. I mentioned it last week in workshop. Two aspects to the three. So we didn't get a response to tender. This is for the boat ramp area. We had directly approached subsequent to that 3 bidders. 2 of them are subset. Well, one didn't participate. One's since pulled out. The third is happy to do it. Just can't remember the conditions around that. I'm sorry. It was this morning I looked at the report. And the other aspect is if we're not going to do it, well, number one, we're still eligible for the money from DIA, which is good. They're happy to keep that till December, as long as we finish the work, which we will be able to. The initial trigger for this, which was people doing wheelies on that area, potentially we could do something in the meantime, and they've looked at a couple of different to deter that. May not eliminate it, but it may deter it. Or the option is to proceed with council authorising the use of additional funding. So if I was to make a recommendation, Mr. Chair, I mean, we all don't know what the future brings, of course, and wars in Ukraine don't certainly help with some of our product cost. But whether people will be keen to bid a little bit tighter post-winter is a bit of a guess. But my inclination, I suppose, would be to defer.
So what price have we got back? So
they're in the report.
I'm just telling the code out. So they can complete project work for the price they submitted on 27th of 378,000.
Yep.
With the start date of April and 5 weeks duration. Now, so correct me if I'm wrong, but this also includes like the island up on Gilchrist Street. Was that part of it?
No. Oh, we did put that out. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. But no, that's.
I thought that was part of this.
Well, it's certainly included in the same. When we bidded the work,
yeah,
we included Gilchrist Street in it to provide a bigger package that might attract people.
Yeah.
But I think this is simply focused on the actual car park.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I still think that. Personally, I think we should probably track on with it. I don't know if it's going to get any cheaper because I'd hate to sit around here and then we go out and tender again and then it's $500,000 because these roading crews and tarmac people are probably not going to get quieter for quite some time yet, just even with the work that's already been started in the pipeline. So I can't imagine in a couple of years' time it's going to be cheaper. The other thing I comment about it, and I still think, MB gave us that funding based on what our estimate was at the start. So they were obviously happy to fund, 90 grand of that or whatever it was. I still think that money still stands. So they're happy to do that. I would still be inclined to go back to them and say, this is now the price of it. Would they consider upping their contribution towards it? I think they would have a full understanding that the prices have increased. It wouldn't take a rocket scientist to work out that prices have increased for any construction in the last, 12 months, even the last 6 months in particular. And the other thing I'd comment on it is we've got that motor van caravan associated park over there that is so well utilised now, and obviously that's part of the dump station there. I'd also be interested to see if we could trim some of that off because I think we added in there over and above like a U-Butte dump station. I think if we just tidied up the one we've got there and
made that entrance here, I'd be interested to know what price would be then. Maybe that might trim a little bit off the 378, but I think we should still progress with it. This has been going on for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, a little bit like the Morrinsville River Walk. And I think it's going to be a well-utilised place, and we've got more people coming to town, and all we've got down there is a skid pad pretty much. With the gravel there, the business owner that's down there, we've brought this up, I don't know how long, it feels like 6 or 8 years that it's been an issue. And it is a well-used area. We've got the cycle trail going through there now too. So I'm actually comfortable with it. I'll go to, I don't know who had their buzzer on first, James Thomas.
I just was wondering if it's been pushed out a little anyway, time frame. Is it worth talking to Swaps again if they were intending to put another quote in because they pulled out initially because of that time frame? I mean, I don't want to delay stuff unnecessarily, but I always think it's, if we can get 3 quotes or something. Just interested in seeing the big difference between the Fulton Hogan and the ME Civil as well. I mean, fair difference there. And then if we are, I'm going to presume that NB won't up their funding. Just going to presume that. But it's probably a safe presumption that your logic is spot on, but
still worth asking.
It's absolutely absolutely ask away. But I'd be working on the presumption now that we won't get any more money out of them, and if we do, it's a pleasant surprise. So a little bit will be, I accept that if we delay, the money's only going to go up. Absolutely accept that, and I know that we've only got the NB stuff until the end of the year.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, I mean that might be more of the conversation whether we can push that out as well if we had to. I'm not saying that that's what we want to do, but so I mean I'd sort of like to see it go ahead as well, but where does the extra money come from?
Yeah. I think Tina, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just really curious because it says it was originally advertised on Gets. Well, I can't find it on Gets. I've never seen it on Gets. I check Gets regularly, and I'm just looking now at the closed tenders, and it's not on Gets. I'm concerned that this is an awful lot of money, and it's all the big players that are playing, and the third one's come in and upped the price because nobody else can do it. So it's an exorbitant amount of money, and I really think that we need to just check how did we advertise the tender. I think it needs to go back out again, and we need to make sure it actually reaches more people because there is quite a few smaller contractors who can do this job. We also need to assist the Motorhome Caravan Association in where they're at with their resource consent for putting a dump station on their site, and we need to prioritise that. My understanding is that they have done the paperwork, but don't hold me to that. That's just third hand. We've got some options there, and that may be that if we can get the resource consent through for the Motorhome Caravan Park, that gives us one dump station, and if we can tidy up the other side, that gives us a really good access to the other one plus everything else. But I'm concerned that I can't find the original tender on the Get system, even on the closed list. I'm on there now, it's not there. And I'd like to know actually how did we advertise it, who did we approach, and are we targeting enough people in order for some of our more local small guys to actually even have an input into this.
Thanks, Tina. Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I'm probably a bit more passionate about it, or the same passion that we had with the Morrinsville River Walk. So just looking at the report that we got sent today, it includes the extension of the dump. Does it include the extension of the dump station for the caravans, or does it not? If the NZMCA planned event in March was going ahead, would it have been completed already? Because that got pulled, and are we just using we didn't get the quote as a as a, like the way I see it, a possible way out for those people that didn't want to do it. There is a couple of recommendations there that we build temporary shallow drains, speed humps, and that to stop the hoons. We'd have to also put in a cleaning process. I complained on the other day, and they come down and swept the footpaths. That's all they did. They didn't clean up where the dump station people go that sometimes lie on their backs to get underneath the their vehicles. They're only doing a half-assed job there. If they're going to stick to a cheap job and put speed humps in, they've got to do the job properly. I've been in communication with Des Austin this morning and got an email from him. Since the 22nd of December, we've had 700 plus camper vans come into Te Araha and staying the night. That's 700 times 2 minimum people staying in Te Araha. So that's a lot of people coming into our district, going on to Matamata or going through Mayoral. So I think that needs to be taken into account. Maybe Tina might be able to add a bit with the effect, if there has been any effect out with their business. Hamilton Tourism Report said that we had a $77 million, an 8% increase in January. Okay, their first report didn't include the Motorhome Association because of the 22nd was the opening day of the Motorhome Association Park. January, a 7% increase. I wonder why. Did that have anything to do with the Motorhome Association? You know, possibly did.
I think you get through visa transactions.
Yeah.
So those people are in town. Those motorhomes take a fair bit of fuel. You know, they drink a bit of the coffees around. They visit the cafes. I would like to see this getting kicked and started as soon as we can. Bit out of my league, but I'm sure Manaia said we had a 1.7 mil surplus somewhere this morning. Not too sure where that surplus is sitting, but whether we could borrow a couple of $100,000 out of there, I don't know. But I think we need to find the money and go ahead and get it done. We're a lot of talk in Te Ara, spa pools, this and that, but we're getting nowhere in Te Ara at the moment. We get a footpath fixed here and there. We might get a bit of work done on the domain in the next few months. Depends what happens at 1 o'clock at our meeting. But otherwise, Te Ara seems to be on the little back burner. I know we're a district, but yeah, that's what I got to say.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Neil.
Yeah, I don't see it quite that way. I'm like Tina, I'm not very comfortable paying 130, even a Fulton Hogan, so that they can't do it for a while. I can't see them increasing their price by 50%. So we're paying we might as well have done the same with the footpath then and everything else. Our job is to spend the ratepayers' money. We've got a contract in front of us here for $257,000, saying that he's going to go up. But is he really going to go up to $380,000?
Yeah,
it's a 50% increase in 3 months. So for me, it's a no, because I'm not going to spend somebody else's money when I'm happy to wait 3 to 6 months if Fulton Hogan can do it and come back to us with a price, let alone if somebody else can put it out for tender. So for me, I don't support it in that respect, because looking at those figures there, I just don't see how anybody of good business would do that.
Yeah.
With the business sense, it's too much of a difference. Yeah.
Just like to make a comment on picking up on what Russ said. I was talking to one of the guys that actually they take turns of administering the park over there. So they have a week about, or they go down there for a week and they interview all the people and they just make sure everyone's okay and this and that. And he was just saying to me, do you realise how utilised it is? I said, yeah, I do, because I drive past there every night, and it's staggering how many camper vans are in there. And he said, and he was talking to just one evening he was down there, and he said there was a group of six must have been like 3 couples or whatever. They were heading to the RSA for dinner and drinks. They were asking them, which direction to go further than that, but that's where they were heading. There was another 4 or 5 going up to the local takeaways just up the road, Stanley Ave. There were another couple going down to get ice creams. But he also said that there was another one there that was pretty heartening where there was a few things that came about from it. He said that a lot of people were there and they were just saying, no, we're only staying one night. And then he'd go back the next evening and they were staying there again. He said, oh, I thought you were going. And no, we're going to stay another night. That's a real common theme coming through, that they're staying multiple nights. The other one was one particular guy, and he wasn't all that old. He said he's staying in there, and he was there for 11 days because his wife was unfortunately dying at the Tiara Hospital. So it's stuff that we don't realise the impact of something like that can actually mean and have for people. And a lot of them are going, this is pretty cool here, and they're calling them mates from Hamilton. And then, no, we're staying another night because our friends from Hamilton are coming over in their van tonight, So this is probably the best news story I've had in a long time. And, I think it might have been Tina saying, or someone was saying, you have a look at them and they've all got push bikes on the back of them, the majority of them have. And they're on the cycle trail and they're going to get the coffee.
There's no parking in here.
Yes, because there's no parking. We'll have to put up a parking lot. But, so these things are really bloody great, guys. And I think,
Is it in the motorhome book?
Yeah.
Is it in the motorhome book? Yes. Probably not.
I'm not sure.
Well, I think
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Neil. Like I hear Tiara's councillors angst at this. We're not putting it off for another 12 months. When we look at the risks, there's a risk of starting a job in a flood zone in autumn. Well, we haven't had decent autumn rain for a while, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen this year. So that is a real risk if the river levels, if we do get some rainfall. And then we've got to remember that bloody chestnut called Omicron, excuse my language, because it is decimating crews working, and this is going to flow on. So they probably won't get it done in April anyway, because they'll get held up with crews being off work, because that is a real risk. So hearing what Tina said, about putting it out again, and there might be some smaller contractors that could do it. So a few months isn't going to make a huge difference. So yeah, I'm inclined to just, but we've got to get it done. Like this has to be done.
And also, Tina's saying that it wasn't advertised on. So what happened to it? What happened to it?
I've just been sent an email from Fiona showing where it was advertised on again. So I'm happy to pass that on.
Okay, no, that's fine as long as it will see it.
I'll pass it on.
Yeah. Okay, Caitlin.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, thanks. So I'm inclined to actually push on with this project purely because we've got the possibility of the rising costs coming through, the difficulties of getting products through post-COVID, and the need of it having to be done. So I am concerned. I know the price is off the scale for what we expected, but my concern is we don't get it done, and we have this pushed on for a year and a half, and we've got a lot of people using these facilities already, and we're only getting more and more seen as a destination place for all our outdoor activities, and everybody's camper vanning around New Zealand because they can't travel overseas as easily. So my concern is that if we push it back, it's just going to end up in that opposite basket. We missed the boat on that one. So I'll be voting for us to get it done pronto. Thanks.
Thanks, Caitlin. Kevin.
I hear the passion from the Tiara councillors and they're wanting it to be done, which I think is awesome. Said we went back to 3 contractors for a price. Does that mean there were other contractors who put in a price, or are they the only 3 that did that?
It's something we'd have to clarify, I think, Kev.
Because do you want to comment on that, Matt?
Oh, Matt.
So the question was, were the contractors for the bid? The answer to that is no, as I understand. Is that correct, Matt?
Well, initially it went out pre-Christmas, closed after Christmas, and we had no tenders. So then we sought direct prices from Fulton Hogan, Swaps, and MS Civil.
Sorry, that was my phone going off. Okay, so there was no one else that tendered. In fact, nobody tendered, so that's cool. But I agree with Tina. There are probably smaller contractors out there that could do the job. I'm just thinking Don Brown Excavators over in Matamata, maybe. There's quite a few of them that would be big enough to do the job and do it well. So I'd be tempted to see if I could get a hold of or make a list of other contractors apart from the three big players and go to them directly and give them the tender documents and see if they would like to do it. I mean, I know Omicron's causing all sorts of shit with work around, or workers around the place, but if we don't ask, we'll never know. And yeah, I'd like to push on and get it done if we can with the smaller contractors.
Yeah.
Yeah, just picking up on that, Kieran and Matt, probably when we reflect back to, putting it out in December and closing off at the end of December, probably not an ideal time frame to put any kind of type of tender contract out there. No fault, Matt, and of staff, because it was from our instruction, we wanted to get it done for the Motorbike Caravan Association, so there's no reflection on that on your part. I'd just like to, I'm just starting to get a bit of a feeling around the room, and I'm just wondering if it would pay to put the tender out again in its entirety, and then see what comes back.
This is a recommendation in the report.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen that. Yeah. So I think that might be a way forward. I'll just go to I'll go to Donna first, Russell, and then I'll come back to you. Donna.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yeah, I've just been listening to all the comments around the table, and I just think these contractors just taking the mickey a bit. It's quite a eye-wateringly amount for an and I'm just thinking, yeah, maybe put the tender out again and see what you get. I'm just going to ask a dumb question here, but I was looking at these costs. 25K for iwi liaison costs. Is that standing over the construction while it's happening? That's my dumb question for the day.
Well, I'm not sure what the process involves, but that would just be a provision. But this required a resource consent from memory, Matt. Is that correct? It's part of the resource consent.
Yes, that's correct.
That is part of that consent because of the proximity.
That is correct.
You were involved in the initial, and that's part of some of the delay. I'm not suggesting it was the entire delay, but we had to wait for a report from them to be done. Part of the resource consent process.
Right. No.
That's
okay.
Right.
Thanks. I'd be all for just putting the tender out again and see what you get. I just think it's a lot of money.
But why would we have to get resource consent to seal an existing? It's been there. What? How old is that boat around there?
What triggered the resource
60 years. 60 years, 70 years.
Can you explain resource consent?
Sorry, the question was what triggered the resource consent?
Yeah.
The fact that it's in a kaitiaki zone, an area where there used to be an old par site.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Moving on to Russell.
Yeah, g'day, Matt. The quote or the tender that went out in December, that would have been with all the bells and whistles gold plated as per the plan that you gave me several months ago down at the boat ring when we met. If a new tender goes out, what will that involve, and will you cut out all the bells and whistles?
Sorry, what was
it?
pump station, because just reading the email I got from Des from the motorhome, their consent's gone in for a second, or for their pump station, so we obviously wouldn't need that down there, so that would be removed from the tender application.
Still keep the one we got away.
Yes.
Yeah, instead of having a double-sided entry mat, we would slim it down to one.
Yeah.
Yes, we can always leave it as that and tidy it up, obviously, and to match our roading design.
The par side, Ash, was that confirmed in any way?
Bruce.
Look, I've heard it all, and I look at these figures in it, and it says funding, we've got a shortfall of 255. Well, we haven't got a shortfall of 255 because that's using the MS 380k. So you take the 380k out and put it in even at the Fulton Hogan price, right? There's another 100k come off there, right? And if we take out the double-sided thing and what have you, and trim it down, tidy the whole place up, put it out to tender again and get in and do it. We'll find the money.
Yep. Okay, any more correspondence? I think we've pretty much discussed this pretty well. Okay, so we've got a recommendation, have we? That is,
Don's got a recommendation.
Oh, Don, do you want to read your recommendation?
Well, I'm assuming there was some choices.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's down the bottom.
That we put the contract back
here we go. Here we go. Recommendation that we put the contract back out to tender. Well, I'm not sure about May, June. I can't see why we can't go out now for tender. Just comments around that, around the table, because we've got May, June.
Well, and with revised specs.
April, May, we could bring it to.
Go out now. Go out now.
Yeah.
You know what, now it's not quite right because we're still in that.
Okay. April. Go out April.
And they've got to redraw their stuff too, you see.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So give them a month to get their stuff redrawn.
And they won't be doing it over the
during
winter.
April, May.
And that's Easter.
With the revised provisions, i.e. just the existing single lane dump station.
Yep.
And yeah. And then we'll see what comes back.
Because the reality is it's for September, because usually you get your heavier rainfall through the winter when that river will flood. So this is why the timing is for September, so you're getting past that risky period. So we can't do it any earlier than September, but we can get the tender out sooner. Is that what we're saying?
All ready to go at that point.
Okay. Everybody happy with that? Bruce moved that. Russell second.
So are we going out for the second recommendation that Fulton Hogan go down and construct some temporary shallow drains and speed humps?
I wouldn't waste any more money on it.
Then can we put something in place where KBS put a program in place to clean and maintain that, so the business owner doesn't have to do it every second day, so that at least the place is presentable to the visitors, the 700 plus we've had since the 22nd of December.
Yep, that's an operation.
So Russell, do you think that will alleviate the problem?
Slowing them down?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, then I'll be happy.
Now they don't even go as far as the boat ramp. They actually just do donuts outside David's place. Dave's place. He's actually going to pay his own cost to go and get a tractor and a blade, because he can't get up his driveway at the moment with his car transporter on. So he's got to a stage now where he's having to spend money to do KBS's job.
Yeah, the only thing I'd do comment on that, it might be something he wished otherwise, the speed humps can then he'll be putting up with the bang bang as they go over them every 2 minutes. That's the only problem that we usually find. I hear what you're saying 100%, but I'm just thinking if we can go out with tenders sooner than later, see what comes back before we do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to think that that's going to cost what I'm worried about, Russ. It sounds really equal, and then we find out that we've spent 70,000 putting them in. I'd be a backward flip, possibly.
Let's get the tenders out there.
You know, and just
let Matt go and have a chat to the landowner and how best to achieve something.
I think Matt speaks with them quite often and probably, but you know, I get at least a weekly phone call. Last night it was 45 minutes. We achieved nothing and got nowhere. So yeah.
That's correct, Russell. I just got off the phone with them before this meeting, actually.
Well, Matt, how cheap is it to whack some of these speed humps in? Because I mean, they've got to be fixed to the ground. They wouldn't imagine they'll be cheap.
Well, we didn't stipulate speed humps because they were easily knocked over or they could be easily levelled out by these hoons. That was the reason why we went for shallow swale drains.
The likely cost of that though, Matt?
Sorry?
Look, the likely cost, just a rough estimate to do that?
I had a cost estimate of about 3,500.
Okay. Yep. Oh, yep. I'd be happy with that.
Mayoral fund.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I haven't seen this day. Yeah. No. Okay. We all happy with that. Bruce moves. Russell seconded.
So we're putting the swell drains in.
Yep.
Straight away.
Yep. Yes.
And we go out to bid, and we want the work done
as soon as. Yeah.
All right, so
September, whenever they can do it. Yeah.
No.
well, okay. So whenever they can do it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I wouldn't be worrying about
that. Could be part of the tender. They can indicate when they'd be able to do it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, can I just clarify, we are adding in the second part of the recommendation?
Just the swale drains, yeah. The hoons.
And presumably, I mean, rather than having to come back to council with, unless it's at the particular problem, whatever the tender is whatever the tender is.
Yeah.
And we proceed on that basis.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep. Yep.
I'll advise you of what it is. But...
Yep. Yeah, but your contracting going to NC.
Wheelbarrow, pick and shovel.
Okay, all in favour of that, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
All good? Okay, carried. Thank you, guys, and that brings the meeting to a close.
Do you want to do Q&A before lunch or?
Yeah, we can do.
Can we eat and talk?